Russell Gahagan here from Russell's Fishing Tech. Looking forward to 2021. We're on video number 2 of the year here, and this one's going to be a little bit more of an advanced video. This one's going to be on advanced flashers and flies. So in my previous video, we just talked about Flasher Fly 101 and sort of what the basics of a flasher and a fly is. Now we're going to get a little bit more into detail of some of the key things that I think are important when it comes to flashers and flies. So we'll start with this loop knot we got here at the end of the fly leader. So one of the things that I like to do with a flasher and fly setup, regardless of what brand of flasher you use, is I like to double over the loop knot. And it makes it hard to get it off, which I'm honestly struggling with right now, but it makes it that much harder for the fish to get off. I just got it off there. So what do I mean by that? So you tie this, got this loop knot, whether you buy a pre-tied salmon candy leader or whether you tie your own, you have this loop knot just like that. A lot of guys would just grab that, and whether you're using a clip style like on a Pro Troll flasher or a different brand, or you're using this corkscrew style, they would just put that on like that. Well, what's the issue with that? Well, when it's on like that and the fish shakes his head back and forth, it could potentially get that leader off of that swivel. So what do I like to do? Well, I basically like to turn this loop into rabbit ears. So you just take it and you bend it over like that, which creates rabbit ears, just like that, and put it together, put the rabbit ears together, and now put it on that corkscrew. And what that does, whether it's a regular swivel or a corkscrew, like I said, is it makes it very, very difficult by wrapping it over there for the fish to shake his head and pull your leader off. It's really these small details on flashers and flies that I think make a really big difference once you sort of get the grasp of the basics. So as I mentioned before, in my previous video, this line is 50-pound fluorocarbon. I think that that's really, really critical. You want to use fluorocarbon line, and you want to use 50-pound in my opinion. What's really important with that as well is I think you want to use a stiff fluorocarbon. There is many different fluorocarbons out there. I prefer Andy, Blood Run, or Seaguar. Those are kind of the 3 real stiff ones. There's some other brands that I'm not going to mention that are a little bit softer, a little more supple, that I don't like. So I would try to stick to Andy, Seaguar, or Blood Run. Those 3 are really nice, constructed fluorocarbon leader line. So on the business end here, one of the things I want to talk a lot about is beads. So I mentioned in my previous video that all beads are used for is a spacer. That's all they are. People make a really big deal out of them in crawler harness fishing, and I think that sort of took, for walleyes, that sort of took over to salmon fishing with flies. The difference between crawler harness fishing for walleyes and flies for salmon is that with a crawler blade, it doesn't cover up any of the beads really. As that blade's spinning around in front, you can see all the beads, they're exposed. But in a fly, you really can't see the beads inside of that fly regularly. So I don't think it's really important to play with the coloring a lot, and I actually think that it's one of those parts of the deal that you can really confuse yourself on if you start going real crazy on colors here. You can get a lot of different colors going and end up making it very difficult for you to be successful with flashers and flies. Why? Well, this leader, in my opinion, is the most important part of a flasher and fly setup. Why is that? Well, when a salmon hits this and puts this hook in his mouth, he gets amino acids all over that line, all over that hook, and on this setup. This particular leader is actually, in my opinion, what is the hottest of this entire setup. Of the flasher and the fly, this is what actually goes in the fish's mouth. So it's really important that when you get a leader like this that's working, that you try to preserve this leader to the best of your ability and continue to use it, because you'll have more success. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like seeing salmon fishermen go with a bunch of crazy different bead ideas, because what happens is you end up with 40, 50 different leaders, and every day you're sort of switching them out to whatever, bead color you think matters that day, and you don't end up with a whole lot of leaders that are really working for you, that have caught a lot of fish. So just use the beads as a spacer. Use the correct amount of beads for the size you're using. Again, this is a salmon candy pre-tied leader. This one uses 4 beads for the proper spacing. And make them all the same color. I don't care if you like glow in the dark, you like green, you like red, you like blue, whatever. I prefer clear or clear UV or like a pearl, something very basic and not very gaudy. That way it doesn't take away from the fly color, and they're all the same all the time. So that part's really important to me. Another thing that's critical, absolutely critical, is the hook. You need a high quality hook, at least a 2X strong. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've been using the Spark Point 4X strong VMC hooks. I still recommend that hook. That is a great hook. They become very difficult to get, but we've been able to still get them. But we here at Salmon Candy now have switched to the Addia Hercules no bite off hook. And what this hook is and why we've switched is, not only is the Addia Hercules hook a very good quality hook, very high quality hook, I think it's comparable to the Spark Point, the VMC Spark Point 4X strong. It's in the same ballpark, but it has one added feature that makes the Addia hook better than any other treble hook on the market. And you can see that there's that glob of glow resin there. It's a glow-in-the-dark resin. I don't care what color it is. Don't even care that it's glow-in-the-dark, really, to be honest with you. But what's important to me is that glob of resin is doing something that I've been doing with my hooks for 8 or 10 years, which is it's closing that gap. That gap is a nightmare when you get big kings on, and a lot of cohos especially as well, especially early in the season when they're super aggressive. Anybody that's fished the Great Lakes long enough knows the issue with that gap is the line will get curled back there and get stuck in the gap like that, and you pulling on the leader like that in the fish's mouth will actually end up pulling that hook out of the fish's mouth when it gets stuck in that gap. So the fact that Addia has done something that I've been doing with JB Weld for 8 or 10 years and now on a production level made me super excited, and to the point where I felt like Salmon Candy needed to make a change with their hooks. So they're now using the Addia Hercules 2X strong hook. Again, there's probably some Spark Points out on leaders. Those are fine. They work great. I still have a bunch of Spark Points I'm going to use. But going forward, I'm going to tie all my leaders with this Hercules 2X strong size 1 Addia no bite off hook. So it's a little different sizing. The VMC Spark Points, I like the number 2 for the flies. In the Addia Hercules no bite off, I like the number 1. Again, that resin there eliminates the fact of that line getting in the gap, which is really, really important. If you haven't had that happen to you, you've been very lucky. If you've been fishing the Great Lakes for a long time, you know it happens a lot. And nothing upsets you more than when you fight a really big king for a long time. That line gets caught in there and it pulls the hook out. So that's really some of the key components to flasher and fly, kind of advanced flashers and flies. If you pay attention to the quality of the line and type of line you're using, you make the bead color simple, and you make all your leaders with the same beads, and you use a good quality hook, you're golden. One thing you can do that eliminates all that for you is you can buy pre-tied leaders from Salmon Candy, and then you're ready to go. But let's talk about the other big variable here, and that is the length of the leader from the flasher to the fly. Here's the basics on that if you don't know. So this length from the leader, this leader line here from the flasher to the fly is 24 inches, okay? The length of the leader, it really affects the action of the fly. The longer the leader is, let's say if this was 30 inches, the fly would be really lazy like this behind the flasher. The shorter the leader, let's say it's like 22 inches, the more aggressive the fly is going to be, okay? One of the major mistakes that I see a lot of my customers make is they have a huge variance in their fly leaders. What I mean by that is they own a bunch of them that are 30, they own some that are 27, they tie up some that are 22, and I call it chasing your tail. You're constantly switching stuff up. The issue with that is not all your rigs are running the same. When I go out on a charter or in a tournament, I might run 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, depending on if it's a charter or tournament, if I'm limited on rods, whatever, flashers and flies at one time. What I want is I want all of those flies to have the same action at the same time. Why would I want that? Well, that's going to help my catch rate. Once I figure out what action the fish want on that fly for the day, I will figure out exactly what that is, and I will catch more fish. So I tie all my leaders at 24 inches. When I give seminars, when I talk to my customers, I tell them, I don't care what your preference is, if it's 24, 27, 30, but you can't tie a whole bunch of them. You'll always be chasing your tail. It will be very difficult for you to have really, really good success with flashers and flies. Pick one length and adjust from there. You might say to yourself, well, how do I adjust? Well, there's two things that put action on this fly. The length of the leader, like I just said, and the speed of your boat. If you troll at 3 miles an hour, you're going to have a much more aggressive action on that fly. If you troll at 1.8, you're going to have a much more lazy action on that fly. So how does that equal out to making changes? Well, if you tie all your leaders the same, let's say you're going to go with a 24-inch leader, you're going to buy Salmon Candy pre-tied leaders, okay? Your Salmon Candy pre-tied leaders are 24 inches. Let's say you're out on Lake Michigan today and you're trolling at 2.2 miles an hour. And you call up your buddy and you say, hey, Tom, how's it going today? And Tom says, oh, Russell, I'm out here. I'm just slamming on the fish. Oh, you are? Nice. Okay, what are you catching them on? Flashers and flies. Oh, my flashers and flies aren't working that good today. First question I should ask Tom is, what is the length of leader behind your flasher to your fly? He says it's 27 inches. Something goes off in my brain right away and says, okay, he's got a little longer leader. His fly is probably more lazy. What speed are you trolling today, Tom? Well, I'm trolling at 2 miles an hour. I go, okay, well, I'm at 2.2, he's at 2, so he's trolling a little slower too. So he's really got a lazy action fly compared to me. That's what they must want today. So what will happen is when I hang up that phone with Tom, I instantly know I need to get my speed below Tom's speed to try to mimic the action on his fly. So in other words, I probably would adjust my speed from 2.2 miles an hour to 1.8 miles an hour. Now I'm going 1.8 miles an hour with a 24-inch leader. Tom's going 2 miles an hour with a 27-inch leader, and we're probably in the same ballpark now on actions of fly. So instead of digging through a tackle box, trying to find a bunch of 27-inch leaders, trying to make a bunch of adjustments, switching stuff out, all I got to do is just adjust my speed based on the information that I receive, and I'm going to catch a bunch more fish. Those are some of the top tips I can give you to flashers and flies. Really break this thing down, make it basic, make adjustments, and repeat, 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 and you'll catch more kings out on Lake Michigan and Lake Ontario. Good luck fishing. Hope you enjoy the video.